Good morning, Ratman. I'm your host, Venerable Che, and joining me is my co-host, Corgi. Or rather, would be joining me. However, unfortunately, on her way to Gibraltar, Corgi fell into the Mediterranean Sea and drowned. What actually happened was, if you watched the previous episode, which you should, it's sheer chaos and fantastic, she mentions, oh, my computer keeps blue screening. It stopped turning on yesterday. Just died. So she's buying a new... There's a child outside my window screaming. She's buying a new computer. That will all be hopefully by the next episode. Failing that, we'll probably try and see how recording through an iPad works. That'll be possibly terrible quality audio. But as for this episode, it's just me. I am recording this with enough lead time that I will then send the video to Corgi once it's edited, which should be easy because it's just me. And then Corgi will then subsequently listen to the video and do her drawings from the video. She just doesn't have any input apart from anything that she specifically writes into the episode. So if you're wondering, hey, why are there Corgi pictures and no Corgi? That's why. Because Corgi got the audio before we recorded. That's just how this is going to work. And because of that, it's going to kind of just be a little breeze. There's not going to be much off-topic conversations, though I do have vaguely off-topic conversations. This is a bit like the Bretonia episode where I kind of get into some stuff. But before we all start, I sometimes give a shout out to specific people in our little community if they do something cool. And I just want to give out a special shout out to a member of our community, Corgi. This would have been better if she was present for this, but hey, I asked her to make a thing and she made it wrong. Completely fucked it up. Which is my fault. I explained it poorly, but in my defense, she asked me and I had literally just woken up. So, you get what you get. And she sent me the initial design sketches and I was like, I looked at it and went, this isn't what I wanted at all. But I didn't say anything because she was cooking. So I just let her cook. So, Corgi, you can insert those pictures into this video now, or I can. Or you could message me and say, hey, don't put the pictures in the video, because they're still in an initial sketch phase. Either way, the fucking Corgi made some really cool sketches. They weren't what I wanted at all, but they were really fucking good. So, today, we're going to be covering, for the second week in a row, not Warhammer. We are going to instead be covering a thing I've had my eye on for a little while and decided to deep dive into it. And then just as I did that, fucking bunch of other Lorehammer tubers also went, hey, or just general Warhammer YouTubers were like, hey, we're also going to cover this thing. Cool. Man, we're really fucking timed that. Hopefully it coincides and I get some of their dregs. But hey, it's a brand new tabletop wargame that's making the rounds that combines one of my favorite things to deep dive into, the Abrahamic faiths and religion in general. And one of the things I hate the most, which is religious fundamentalism. It's a great mix. Love it. That thing, if you already saw the title, is in fact Trench Crusade. There's not too much because the game's not out yet, but they do have a 57-page lore primer and a rulebook that has a lot of lore in it. And they recently had a successful Kickstarter with a goal of $66,666, which they barely passed, making a meager $3.3 million instead. As an aside, here's a picture of the sheer amount of tabs I had open at one point for research. Yes, those Facebook tabs are in fact related. Also, the name and thumbnail, shameless clickbait. I want to see how it does. I feel icky about it, but hey, that's business. Speaking of business, the people behind Trench Crusade are making some decisions. I don't know how good of a business decision they are, but I appreciate them greatly. It's really cool. Having all the rules and updates for free to access? Awesome. Warhammer keeps flirting with the idea and then changing their minds. The fact that their models are also 3D printable? Awesome. Means you now have a piracy problem, but still awesome. They seem to be really supportive of their community, and importantly, fan works within their community. Fucking baller. Do that. Fucking, I understand the whole, lawyer, gotta protect IP, but your community Your media lives and dies on your community. If you attack your community for flagrant copyright disregard, for, fan art, all you're doing is just alienating your community, and you're just going to slowly bleed community, unless you're Games Workshop, in which case people begrudgingly buy your models because they're really fucking good and your lore's really fucking good. But then you just, someone makes a really good fan animation or fan series that gets a lot of people into it, and then you just go, hey, stop that. We don't like it. Come on, man. It'd be really nice if more companies just followed suit in this. They won't, because, companies just hate being good to their community. It's the best way I could describe that. But it would be nice. It would be nice. And I appreciate the guys behind Trench Crusade, do not know the name of the company, being supportive of that. That's awesome. And interacting with the community is awesome. It's great. Give these guys support. Keep an eye out on them, all that. It's awesome. They're doing some awesome shit. Also, just as an aside, I'm thematically going to be using Anno Domini for years, just mentioning it because normally I wouldn't be doing that. Yeah. Now, we're getting into the timeline from the Lore Primer. Now, it's worth noting, the Lore Primer says a bunch of this is highly biased and likely inaccurate. So, seemingly, human history is pretty much the same until the First Crusade in 1096 AD, which, much like the real world, ends with the capture of Jerusalem in 1099, in which the Knights Templar make what we call in the biz a bad move. They find a demonic artifact under either the Most Holy Temple or the Most Holy Temples. It's worded in a way it could be either, I think it's probably the Most Holy Temple. I don't know which one that is in Jerusalem. There's a couple that it could have been. Now, this artifact started talking to them, as artifacts do. At which point, the fiercely religious Templars went, yeah, I'll listen to the artifact, which I'm going to call a box, because it's funnier that way. Just the idea of rock up at a church and go to the basement, and dead in the center of the basement is a small box on a table that just says, commit atrocities. At which point they go, okay, whatever you say, box. So they start hanging out with devils, which Abrahamically speaking is wrong. It should be demons, but there are many demons, but only one devil, kind of. It's complicated. Different interpretations. Technically, Islam has multiple devils through Shaitan, but also has a Satan figure with Iblis, even which, depending on the sect, calling him a devil is an oversimplification of a very nuanced figure. And they also did, quote, unspeakable rites. So like rivers of blood shit. And this fun little event is known as the First Heresy. And Jerusalem merged with hell. Literal hell. And they now coexist. Fun times. So, the armies of the church fucked right off. Bad time. But did try and fail to stop it. And in 1101 AD, the year of the three battles, the heretics, the Hell Templars, while being reinforced by the armies of the Third Circle of Hell, that being gluttony, the Hell Crew conquered almost all of the Levant. This place. Fun times. So, 1 year after everything goes tits up in the Holy Land, that is 1102, Antioch is fortified. Probably wasn't hard. Kind of what it was known for. And it becomes the home of the resistance in the Holy Land. Basically. Rambling about the city, Antioch, very important city, historically speaking, and in early Catholic and Orthodox Christianity. St. Luke, the writer of the Gospels of Luke and the Act of the Apostles, two of the books of the Bible, is from Antioch. Like, he might not have written them. That's pretty standard for the authors of sections of the Bible. Still around, but not nearly as important. It's called Antakya now. It's in Turkey. Has a population of 400,000. City was recently devastated by an earthquake. A lot of people died. Yeah, it was a depressing note. Fun. There is also a major sect of the Orthodox Church from Antioch that was founded by the apostles Peter and Paul, I believe. I wrote it somewhere. Yeah. The Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch which was founded by Peter and Paul. At this point in the timeline, words start getting used that have zero context behind them. So, in 1106, Kolbar becomes the first tyrant of the 66. Neat. No clue what that means. Then, in 1109, get ready for some words, because the Great Sultanate of the invincible iron wall of the two horns that pierce the sky is formed. And then, over the next few decades, unite all of the Islamic factions, presumably meaning religious sects and not kingdoms, because that's a lot more impressive. And then the Great Iron Wall of Iskander reemerges, and they fortify it against the Hell Crew. Side note, Iskander is Alexander. Alexander is Alexander the Great, for those unfamiliar with historical mononyms. And the walls of Alexander are a pseudo-mythological fort. From my cursory look, the walls are actually possibly one of several mountain passes, but it is also claimed that various walls and forts are the real wall of Alexander. So presumably, in this world, they are in fact a real fort that was lost and is rediscovered. Or just came out of the ground. It does say re-emerges. Then, in 1117 AD, 17 idiots, known as the 17 Martyrs, that's called foreshadowing, have a great idea. What if, now, hear me out, and let me know if you think this is a bad idea, but what if we go to literal hell on earth and start preaching to convert the devil worshippers back into good old Christians? That definitely won't go poorly. So that goes poorly, and they get shoved into brazen bulls. Brazen bulls that they are still in to this day. Idiots. You can Google what a brazen bull is on your own time. I'm not going to explain it. It's not fun. It's fucking horrifying. I said Google, and now my phone is trying to Google brazen bulls for me. Thanks, Google. Appreciate it. Then, in 1165, Rashid ad-Din Sinan, aka Old Man of the Mountains, aka Head of the Motherfucking Assassins, wasn't expecting them to show up. Him, alongside the Hashishin, defend Alamut, the headquarters of the Assassins, specifically in Persia. So, we in the Persia region. Masyaf is in the Levant and probably destroyed. But Alamut is still standing to this day despite being besieged for hundreds of years. Probably because the Hashishin are fucking wacky. They killed 3 caliphs. How the fuck? Now, not to victim blame, but the third caliph, 100% on him. First guy, probably not expecting it. Second guy, probably went, well, they can't do it again. Wrong, they could. And then the third guy, that's 100% your fault. You should have seen it coming. Welcome to Good Morning Ratman, the show where I insult the competency of people murdered 800 years ago. So then, in 1215 to 1309, we got the Wars of Triclavanism. The church gets split. Gonna take a guess based on the name that it's 3 ways. So, the second Great Schism is very advantageous for the Hell Crew, and they start to spread out relatively unopposed because the Chrysos are killing each other, which, historically speaking, accurate. Millions die. In 1349 to 1353 AD, Beelzebub, a lord of hell and demon, and not Satan, unleashes the Black Grail. Tens of millions die. I checked the years, same years as the Black Plague, but fun part about the Black Grail, here's the direct quote. The Black Grail is indiscriminate in its hatred of all living things. Its infections can spread to virtually any biological matter, which burst forth its tumors, boils, and weeping pustules. Puddles and ponds of melted flesh are left in its wake, endless mouths left screaming in their agony. For the Black Grail destroys the body, but leaves the mind intact to suffer. And bodies of men, horses, dogs, insects, and other animals of every kind that are infected by the Black Grail lurch to their feet, driven by demonic will. Not living, not dead, they become vessels to spread the corruption of their masters even further, forming war bands that strive to find and infect life of any kind. Neat! So it's got a zombie sort of Nurgle thing going on. It says, the corpse wars begin. No follow-up on that. Probably zombie invasion. Then, in 1429, the living saint, important part being living, Jeanne d'Arc, or Joan of Arc for those who can't figure that out, she drives the Black Grail from mainland Europe. achieved a bit more than she did in real life, and seemingly wasn't betrayed and murdered for it. So, also, a historical side note, Joan of Arc, right-hand man, horrible human being, absolute monster. Look up what he did. Or maybe don't. He did a lot of terrible things to children. Terrible person. So, I'm going to read this next part verbatim. In 1477 AD, the city of Argos is taken by God, and it is no more. Okay, get fucked, Greece, I guess. Then, in 1503 AD, a nerd, with the help of Saint Eligius, a man who died in 660 AD and is the patron saint of horses and the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Corps of the British Army, and also metalworking, but that's not important. So this dead guy and nerd discover how to make orichalcum steel, which is very effective at protecting against missile weapons. In 1545, Antioch's gone. Hell crew destroy it. Just mysteriously blows up, allegedly. I'm personally in the camp. Every now and then, God just eats a city. So here's some stuff that Corgi would like, but she's not here, so get fucked. In 1573 AD, the Sacred Order of the Dragon stops the Hell Crew after they destroy Byzantium. Cringe. The destroying Byzantium bit, not the killing the heretics bit. So the Order of the Dragon, Corgi, who you're listening, and people at home, were a real thing. Mostly fighting the Ottomans in Romania and other places. But one such guy with the title of the Dragon, which in Romanian is Dracul. His son was named the Son of the Dragon, also known as Dracula, or Vlad III, or Vlad Tepish, or Vlad the Impaler. So he shouldn't, in theory, be alive at this point. However, 1 million heretics were impaled in Wallachia, so anything goes. Also, Jean is still kicking around, so maybe Vlad's still kicking around doing some weird stuff. Because that's kind of his whole thing. So, in 1595, walls of New Antioch are completed. Where? Same place of old Antioch. They just put the city back on. Then, in 1666, you know it's going to be bad. The year of 6 woes. This doesn't really work as well with Corgi not here, but hey, audience. Whose boat is that boat? There's the boat. Whose boat is that boat? Could be anyone's boat. You want to take a guess? You're wrong. Almost certainly. It's the French's from real life. There is no art of the heretic's boat. So I googled 1666 boat and grabbed the first result. But whose boat is that boat was the question the homies at Gibraltar were asking themselves when a bunch of Hell Crew showed up, having recently discovered naval technology. So now, the Hell Crew owns Gibraltar. Really good rock to own as a defensive position. Which is kinda why, to this day, England still owns it. So now, the Hell Crew, they use it to attack Europe. Get fucked, Spain. Also, the Hell Crew now has access to the Atlantic. Oh no! Bad time to be from the Azores, I guess. Also, so Morocco's just chilling? Alright. Just fucking let's go around Morocco, I guess. In 1670, the Hell Crew watched a little too many clips of Vikings on YouTube's shorts and decided to start attacking England in coastal raids. The Crown does the reasonable thing and constructs a fort at Dover. In 1703, a small group of Hebrew knights holed up in a secret fortress, attacked and destroyed the Templar stronghold in Acre in the Holy Lands. Now, this one's kind of funny to Australians. In 1805, High Captain Ranger defeated the fleets of England and killed Admiral Nelson, presumably Horatio Nelson, a real dude who also died in 1805 in a naval battle. For context, Ranger is a slur for redheads created by a comedian whose big claim to fame is he kept repeating the same joke over and over and over again and also doing blackface. The blackface was part of the joke. He recently got a Netflix series and then no one watched it because it was like the 6th time he did it, and watching a man pushing 50 pretend to be a school child does eventually get old. Also, all the blackface. A lot of redheaded kids got bullied because of that show. Not a fun time. As much as I hate the term and the effect that it had on kids, being as someone that works in education and kids are mean, I still chuckled at seeing it because it was a moment of, really? Sorry? What? He's called what? Fucking hilarious. And then, In 1866, the Hell Crew, fresh off discovering boats, team up with President Marbus and invented submarines, or rather, the first modern submarines. Now, real world, Marbus is one of the 72 demons from Osgotia in the Lesser Keys of Solomon, an occult book from the 1600s I was aware of, but knew nothing about. Now, demons have ranks in the book, and the order listed on Wikipedia: kings, dukes, princes, marquises, earls, knights, and presidents. I assume that is an order of importance. Some presidents are also called counts, and Marbus is lowest rung, and not listed as a count. He is a great president of hell, and quote, answers truly on hidden and secret things, causes and heals diseases, teaches mechanical arts, and changes men into other shapes. So it kind of makes sense. He is making submarines. So then, in 1870, the Hell Crew sends a submarine fleet from Gibraltar to destroy merchant navies and fucking everyone's supply lines, and many people starve. Shout out to the Hell Crew for sucking. In 1872, the Hell Crew takes Rijeka. That's in Croatia. I probably got the pronunciation wrong because it's fucking Croatian. They then fortify it. Lots of places being fortified, and then launch a conquest into Europe. Like they weren't doing that earlier. In 1894, we got the Year of the Broken Trinity. The Death Commandos, they from the Hell Crew, assassinate the Supreme Pontiff, aka Megapope. He's just regular Pope. You just rarely see someone put Supreme in front of Pontiff. That's usually just the Pontiff. They also killed High Prophetess Aelia, no idea what that's about, and the Holy Roman Emperor. Insert Voltaire quote here. The Crizzos, again, have a really bad time, and the Hell Crew get some Hell Nobles from the 7th Circle. That's violence, Drax, and they launch a massive offensive in the Levant and Europe. In 1899, the Church space program commences. What? In 1907, the construction of the moving fortress of Britannia is completed, and for some reason, every Indian in the world feels a strange sense of dread. In 1910, the Hell Crew launch a fuck ton of artillery at Cordoba, but they failed to gain access to the heartlands of Spain. I guess Spain didn't get fucked, as implied earlier. In 1914, present day, this is when the game is set. World War I, but different. That's what's happening. Quote, both sides are preparing for major offensive operations. In the huge swaths of no man's land, furious skirmishes and raids increase in intensity as the faithful and heretics vie for information, powerful relics, and securing strategically important positions. So one of the things I don't really like here is there's currently a lot of information on the background of units, unless the world, like what's up with the space thing. Which, yeah, early days, I get it. It's a complaint, but it's like, I completely understand why this is a thing. But you just got like so much old history potential, currently unfulfilled. Hey, Trench Crusade, I got ideas. If you want a guy with 0 professional writing credits to his name, hit me up. I got ideas. Here's one for free. Catherine McCauley founded the Sisters of Mercy, a non-organization that fights with a brutality and indiscriminately as they view death as a mercy and are willing to kill their own sides because, it's a mercy. I may or may not be suggesting her solely because I am related to her, and maybe, possibly, want to see my family show up in things. That's, however, definitely not the reason. 90% of the reason. Maybe more. Or because Europe is busy doing a thing, the America not really invaded. So I raise you, Aztecs. Always need more Aztecs. You can never have enough Aztecs. You can even do a sunset invasion. Paradox did that for Crusader Kings 2, and quite famously, everyone loved it. So here's what happened, right? I kind of wrote a little rant about some stuff here, but then I discovered the rulebook kind of has a lot of important lore the primer doesn't have, and it was like, oh, shit, this is going to take way too long to pass through. I need more time. So what we're going to do is end here. After a little thing I want to say, and then probably an off-topic conversation. Not an off-topic. Then some end of video content, probably, most likely. If you want to talk, hear me talk about Ghouls, end of video content. No Man's Land Ghouls, specifically. So we will come back next week, possibly with Corgi, possibly not. Really hope with Corgi, where I have had a full week to sort through everything. So this is that timeline. Next week, the factions, the general world, the technology at this current point in time, like the rulebook, explains what's going on in Ireland. Neat. Anyway, there was a whole thing I wrote about the usage of crosses being wrong, but it seems like that's actually addressed in the rulebook. But one of the things I did want to point out, because it's not addressed, possibly, not, at least not what I could see, Heretic Chorister wears an inverted cross. They're part of the Heretic Legion. The inverted cross isn't a satanic symbol. It's the cross of St. Peter, the apostle. Because he was crucified upside down because he felt undeserving to die in the same way as Christ. This bothered me. The inverted cross just kind of felt lazy. Like someone just Googled satanic symbols and didn't do research at all into it, what the cross actually meant. But like, I love mythological fiction, I love religious fiction. I think it makes for great art, and I also firmly believe that art shouldn't be censored for any reason. But at the same time, this is stuff that is sacred to people. It's really important for themselves, who they are as people, but there's a lot to criticize about religion. And I say this as a non-religious person. You have to tread carefully. Because if you get lazy, you're not critiquing anything. You're not saying anything. You're misappropriating something sacred for background dressing. And it does no one any favors. And just, I don't know, man. Like, don't do that. Just, yeah. Anyway, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with more Trench Crusade and probably one final 40k mini-so that I swear will be mini this time. And that's all for us this year, probably. There will be some content coming out. There will be at least 2 shorts, possibly some voiced comics drawn by Corgi if she gets them done on time. Again, computer exploded. And I'm working on 2 videos, one fun video and one more personal, but there are jokes in there. I'll also try to make some small videos while I'm away. And then once I get back, I have some big plans. And we're going to really kick it into gear, where the past month has just been trying to get something out while managing everything else. I will have the time to put into the show and everything else. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. As an aside, when I read Inferno, I also listened to a lecture series analyzing the work. I never read the Divine Comedy in totality, but I did read Inferno. One thing that was really funny about Inferno is it's Dante writing about people that he hates that are in hell and how they're being tortured, and it's all historical figures, mythological figures, and public figures, and every now and then it's just, oh, look, it's Lucius. Of course is having his balls twisted in a vice grip on the second circle for all that he did. And Dante historians are just like, no fucking clue who Lucius is. Or what he did, or why Dante hates him. But apparently, it's enough to get his balls put in a vice in the book. There's just moments of pure spite against people we don't know who they are. And like, there are some where it's like, oh, pure spite against this person. It's like minor person, you know, but we know he was a mayor of Florence, or, you know, the leader of a guild in Florence. A lot of Florentinians. Dante was from Florence. And there's just moments where it's just a guy, just some random guy who probably like sold Dante bad bread. And he's like, you know what? Fuck him. He's going in the greed section. He's going in fucking... Oh man, fuck me. I almost said fourth circle, and then I paused to Google and be like, I can't have gotten that first try. It was the fourth circle. I should have just went with my gut. You know, fucking fourth circle, this guy sold me bad bread, fucking overcharged me, tortured for all eternity, being beaten by bread loaves and having molten gold shoved down his throat or some shit. I don't fucking know. Anyway, when I was reading it, I had a friend at the time who thought it seemed like a real sort of like Shakespearean fancy language thing, and she opened a random page and it described the woman in the second circle, I think it might have been Dido, but I might be wrong, as a whore bitch or something to that effect. Bitch was definitely used in her description. And she was like, what the fuck? I thought that was fancy. And I'm like, no, it's 200 pages of an angry Italian man yelling at dead people he hates. It's funny. That's not why it's called comedy. That's the original meaning of comedy, meaning it's just not a tragedy. But it is a very funny book because it is just pure spite embodied in just, hey, here's a book written in the 1400s, 1300s? Whenever Dante Alighieri was alive, I think it was the 1300s. And He just wrote a book. That's just how much he fucking hates certain people. And then the Catholic Church went, hey, this is a really fucking good book. And it kind of just became pseudo-biblical canon. It's not like actually biblical canon, but the general perception of how hell functions in Catholicism is heavily inspired by Inferno, much like Milton with Paradise Lost, inspiring Satan's Rebellion, and how that's depicted in media, despite the fact that it is functionally biblical fanfiction. A guy wrote fanfiction about the Bible. A guy wrote fanfiction about him going on a journey through hell, purgatory, and heaven. And the church went, you know what? Both of these works. Fucking, they make some good points. We're just gonna slap a little official seal on them. On that lecture, we've already gone off topic. On that lecture, they were talking about, like, the guy who was doing the lecture was talking about how he had students, and most of them, or a decent chunk of students rather, were like, hey, this is a really interesting insight into Dante. This is a really interesting insight of a fictional narrative, a man putting himself, a real person, into a fictional narrative. And then there are other people that he's taught that are just like, no, this is real. This happened. Dante went on this journey. Dante went through these places. Dante did all of this. And I think that's an interesting belief. And I talked in a previous episode that, I like magic in my religion. Not that I'm religious, but like in the general portrayal of, or general religious belief, I feel like a lot of them have been moving further and further away from the magic that is ingrained into these religions. And the belief that Inferno is real, the belief that the Divine Comedy is real, it's a real thing that actually happened, I think really feeds into that magic. And I think that is the better takeaway to have that belief for that book. I think it definitely improves that book. Obviously, I don't believe the book was real because I'm not religious. But I think if you are, I don't know, look at it like it was real. Even if you don't inherently believe it's real, just look at it like it is. I think you might appreciate that book more. I think, yeah. Anyway, that's me rambling about the Divine Comedy. Don't worry, I'll ramble about a city in a minute. So, end of video content. This is my Mandela effect, right? Ghouls in No Man's Land. I remember this being a thing. Just like hearing stories about in No Man's Land, they're just ghouls that live there. And that's why you hear like screams and gunshots, because they're people fighting over resources. And like if you go into No Man's Land, you might get attacked by feral ghouls who have gone crazy and like devolved humans, and they just exist in No Man's Land. And this is a real thing. I didn't imagine this. It does exist, but I found a singular website mentioning it. I remember this having Wikipedia pages. I remember there being movies about this. I remember it being referenced in video games. I remember this being a big thing when you get into like the mythology of war, like gremlins and shit. If you didn't know, gremlins come from World War II, possibly World War I. But like, I remember this being a thing, and I remember the ghouls in No Man's Land being this massive thing. And then like I went to research it, and I could find a singular reference being like, yeah, some people think there were wild men living in No Man's Land. Where are the ghouls? I remember there being ghouls. What happened to the ghouls? Anyway, do you remember the ghouls? Or is this just me? Is this just me remembering something that barely existed? This is just a footnote in history and being like, they made movies about this, and they never did. Did you also get Mandela affected? Did you also experience ghouls in No Man's Land? Hey, if you're a World War I vet, or like 6 of you, and you're watching this, let me know. Did you see ghouls? Were they there?